It is 4:58 a.m. and we are on a road trip to Fresno, California. Once again, I'm joined by my buddy Keith Coast. Keith, why in the world did we leave my house at 4:47 a.m. to go to Fresno?
Well, that's an easy answer, Taylor.
Yeah.
It's magic related.
That's right. We are taking a road trip to my favorite magic shop, which is the number 4 reason to visit Fresno, according to TripAdvisor.
It actually made it onto TripAdvisor?
No, it's actually the only reason to visit Fresno is to visit my buddy Paul Gross at Hocus Pocus, and we are on the road right now. And Keith, we are picking something up for your show. What are we picking up?
I bought a big giant brain that I can shove a person inside of, and it happens to come with laser swords.
You heard it here, folks. The About to Break podcast. Our lives are so flush, we're driving to Fresno at 4 a.m. to pick up a giant brain. Welcome to the show.
No, I'm not a writer.
Okay.
Something is about to break.
What episode are we on? What episode was last week? Last week was 22? So this is, you were episode 22. This is episode 23?
Correct.
Well, this week on episode 23 of the podcast, I'm once again joined by my buddy Keith Coast for 2 reasons. One, because he's still camping in my front yard.
Side yard, hello.
Yes, it's a side yard. It's actually right on the street. But right now we are driving at way early in the morning because in California, specifically in Los Angeles, I think, if you want to go anywhere on a weekday, you got to go early. Isn't that right, Keith Coast?
Apparently.
Keith says, we're going to Fresno tomorrow. What time should we leave? And Taylor says, we should leave about 4:45 because once 5:20 comes, that's the time of death. That is you go in the car, you go to turn it on, and all you hear is a flat line.
Yeah, it's like 5:05, and the traffic is unlike anything I've experienced in Oklahoma.
It's pretty surprising, right? Like 10 minutes ago, there was no one on the road.
It's stupid. It's dumb. There's only 3 reasons people say you should never go to California, and traffic is always number 1.
Keith, when you called me on the phone all those months ago, what did you say to me, Keith?
I don't even remember.
You said, I found something. I think you actually said, bro, look at this. I'm sending you a picture. Yeah. And what was that picture of, Keith?
It's a big, giant brain.
Now, when you say a giant brain, people are probably wondering, how big is this brain?
Well, it's bigger than my actual brain. This brain, I don't know. I don't even really know the dimensions of it. It's big enough that we're having to pick it up in your van.
Yeah.
And it's also big enough, I'm not for sure how I'm going to squeeze it through the door of my motorhome.
And the purpose of this brain, this is going to be part of your show now. This is actually a set piece that was built it's a giant brain you can put a person inside and then proceed to shove. What are we calling them? We can't call them lightsabers. We are not calling them lightsabers on the podcast.
Light swords.
So you can put someone inside and shove a bunch of lasers through it.
So basically, this was a custom-made prop. Some dude paid a lot of money to have this thing made. Yeah, it's basically the sword basket effect. You put an assistant inside. In my case, will be my teenage daughter. I will shove her inside the big giant brain and then proceed to stick 6 or 7 light swords through it, which looks like, how in the world is he doing that? I'm sure she's dead by now.
All magic tricks until the end are murder. Like, if I wasn't in a theater right now, I should be stopping this.
Yeah, I mean, either we're lying to people or we're fake murdering people.
That's always like the big finish of a trick is, oh, we didn't kill that person.
I've always said that a magician would be the perfect cover for an assassin.
Ooh, I'm intrigued. Keep going. Pitch the pilot.
I have this idea in my head. I need someone listening to the podcast who's good at writing scripts.
You got some friends who can write scripts. You can write you a screenplay about the ninja magician.
But basically, it's like a Jason Bourne type of character turned magician, and they send him to make certain targets disappear.
Is he actually using magic effects to make people disappear, or is that his day job cover?
I'm open to letting this story develop. I really don't want to give too much more away because I really think this is a fantastic idea.
Copyright Keith Coast Taylor Hughes 2017.
I like how you throw yourself in there.
Right.
It's like I had this idea for Indiana Jones and like Steven Spielberg.
You were like 4, they made it.
Yeah.
They heard you playing on the playground and they were like, that kid's got some gold. Lesson today of the podcast, be careful who you collaborate with. If you're a songwriter, don't write songs in the room with other people unless you're willing to give them a third of your royalties. There's a saying they got, change a word, get a third. And there's stories of cats who are like, what if you said the instead of the? Those guys are millionaires. And we're in a minivan driving to pick up a brain in Fresno.
Hey, but we are actually, today we're actually in front of a live audience.
We are in front of a live audience because in the van studio on the road is Keith's son, Dylan, 15-year-old son, Dylan. Dylan, how's it going?
Doing good.
Dylan is in the back seat, so this podcast will be rated clean. Dude, I like that little mystery murder magician thing. I did see one thing like that. Well, there used to be a show with Bill Bixby in the 70s that I only saw in reruns called The Magician. And then, was it 70s or 80s? Did you ever see that show, The Magician?
No.
Yeah, they filmed part of it at the Magic Castle. And then there was always like a Matlock or a Murder, She Wrote where they went to a magic show and someone got murdered.
Okay, I just had a crazy thought. Number one, I'm pretty sure that people are pretty pissed as they drive past us and they see you recording with a microphone, holding it in my face.
I'm telling you, man, this is Southern California. No one's thinking twice about this.
And number two, I'm curious to go back and listen to the podcast and see. I'm pretty sure in every episode, the Magic Castle has gotten some sort of a shout out.
That's because it's one of my favorite places in the whole world.
Well, what I'm getting at is you're looking for sponsors. And I don't see any reason why the Magic Castle shouldn't seriously consider the About to Break podcast. I gotta say, man, this is probably the first trip I've had out here where we haven't actually gone to the castle.
Yeah, Keith lives in Lawton, Oklahoma, and he does own a suit. He says he wears it when people die. Did we talk last week about your suit?
We did talk about the suit, but I can't remember. I know people are probably like, why can't you remember a conversation you had like 4 days ago?
It's because we've been living in a house with 9 people.
But yeah, I have a suit. I only wear it to go to the Magic Castle, so I basically just leave it at Taylor's house.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure we talked about that last week. But since last week, Keith, we had the About to Break live show. It happened last Wednesday on May 10th.
Yes.
This is where we drop in all the applause. We did About to Break Live was myself, Keith Coase, Eddie Firth, Chipper Lowell. Wednesday, May 10th. It was at the Loft on 2nd, and it was absolutely wonderful, man. Part of the show this week is we're gonna review our experience at the first About to Break live show. Keith, how was the show for you, man?
I thought it was amazing. I almost said awesome, but I feel that word's been overused by society. I would say incredible, fantastic, stupendous.
Yep, more.
It's early. Amazeballs.
We started the show. This was kind of cool. So we're in the Loft, and the Loft is just this was your first time visiting the Loft on this trip. Tell people a little bit about the Loft for those who may not have experienced the Loft on 2nd and Pomona.
All right. So let's say you're in downtown Pomona. You're walking down the street, and there's a door on the side of a building.
Yeah.
And that's it.
There's no signage.
There's no signage. There's nothing. And, like, if you don't know what that door is, you're going to miss it.
Which is very cool. A couple weeks ago, my cousin Opie was on here, and we talked about speakeasies. And he's got this rule that if you can't advertise it as a speakeasy. It's got like his tattoo shop is in the attic of a bail bonds place. It's like the coolest thing ever, man.
This place is actually sitting atop. I mean, I guess we can say their location because it's the Loft on Second.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it's the M&M Electric.
Yeah, it's right above the M&M Electric. So like right below them is an electric shop. So you go up this incredibly long flight of stairs. You get to the top of these stairs and it's just this massive, big open room, exposed brick on all the walls, big windows, amazing original wood floors.
Yeah.
And it's amazing because this venue is so versatile, and they use it for photography shoots, video shoots.
Yeah, we were there a couple days later for the art walk, and they had students from the local high school were showcasing all their artwork. It's pretty incredible, versatile space.
So seriously, hey, I want to put a shout out there. If you guys are looking, if you are in the LA area and you need a space to rent, dude, I think their prices are really reasonable. I was talking to Josh about it. I mean, I thought their prices were amazing for considering where they're at. So I could already see. I had an idea for a shoot in my mind. So it's
really. What was the idea? Let's hear it.
Well, it's like
we just want to tell all your ideas to everyone.
Yeah. So here's another idea you guys can steal.
Copyright Keith Coast, Dylan Coast, Taylor Hughes, 2017.
Anyways, I don't know if you ever seen like an interview or like a mini doc or whatever where you got someone sitting, in a room with, you got a lot of space between them, so you get that nice aperture in the background, but you've got the lights coming in, a lot of natural light and stuff. I'm already thinking of a couple projects I might want to shoot there.
Yeah, it was awesome, man. We had a really good turnout. It was pretty much what I was expecting for the first one on a Wednesday night in Pomona, California, but we had a nice full crowd, an enthusiastic crowd.
You filled every chair?
We did. We filled every seat, which was pretty awesome. So yeah, I opened up with a little magic trick, and then I introduced my buddy Eddie Fur. This was your first time working with Eddie.
Love Eddie.
Eddie from one of the, first, he did like episode 3 and 4 or something like that, 2 episodes of the podcast. Just a great guy. His timing is killer, man.
Oh, that's exactly what the first thing I went up to him and I was just like, Eddie, bro. I was like, your timing is amazing. And it's funny because he was like, thank you so much. Like to a comedian, that is like, it's one of the highest compliments.
Oh yeah.
He's incredibly gifted at timing, and
Eddie's one of the guys who can use silence as part of the joke, build the suspense, and then that's really what humor is it's building and releasing tension.
It's like workouts at the gym. I've never actually been myself, but I hear it's like you tense up and then you let go.
Oh yeah. Eddie was absolutely great, totally killed it, and was so fun.
Fantastic. So after Eddie, Taylor told a story, which is like a magic routine, but with no magic.
Keith says to me, he's like, I really like that trick where you didn't do a trick.
That's called a story.
Oh.
Here's Taylor's story now.
Oh, now? It's happening now?
Yeah. This is where you're going to put a really cool fade in, like a harp sound,
okay,
and then your story.
Okay. So when you hear this sound, it's story time.
It was the morning of my 7th birthday, and everybody was coming to my birthday party. And the house that we grew up in, and my mom still lives in, was built in 1901, and it was the kind of house that when you looked at it, you would think mysteries happen in this house. And I often wondered when the gentleman built this house in the early 1900s, and he decided to put in 2 large pocket doors, the kind of doors that just vanish into the wall, if he had any idea that those would be the doors where we hid all of our big surprises. It was my birthday, and there was a surprise waiting behind the door, and I didn't know what it was. And I was 7 years old, and all my friends came over, and crisscross applesauce, we sat on the ground, and we watched these pocket doors to see what was going to be behind. And when the doors flew open, it was a magician. And this magician was everything you would expect to see a magician to be. He produced handkerchiefs and it made a bird appear. And for a guy who had never seen magic performed live, it was incredible. But the game changer was when he did this trick, where he took a sheet of newspaper and he rolled it up like a paper cone, the same kind of cone that Dad would use to fill the oil in the car. And he would take that cone, and then he took a pitcher full of milk and proceeded to pour the entire jug of milk into this paper cone. And as we watched with anticipation, a second later, he snapped his fingers, dropped the newspaper, and the milk was gone. And all of a sudden, at 7 years old, my life had purpose. Because I was going to be a magician. And not only was I going to be a magician, I was going to be the type of magician who could make milk vanish. So my first step was to ask the magician. Clearly, he knew how the trick worked. He would see the hidden talent that I had. And he would immediately tell me how he shoved all those birds in his pockets. Right? Now, I don't know how much you know about the Magi. But one thing they're definitely not keen on is revealing trade secrets to a 7-year-old kid. And so when he refused to tell me I did the one thing I knew to do, I went to the local library, because before the internet, that was a thing. I went to the library and I dug through the shelves until I found an entire section. It was section 793.8. And this section of the library, my friends, of every library, contains all of life's great mysteries. It's where all the magic books were. And they have books on everything. You can learn how to make a table float. You can learn how to make an elephant disappear. You can learn the most difficult trick in magic, impressing women with card tricks. And I scoured the shelves till I found a book. It was a catalog for a company called Owen Magic Supreme. Now, Owen Magic Supreme was a big deal. It was the company that built all the props for people like Harry Blackstone and David Copperfield. And I thought, certainly they're going to have the secret to the trick I wanted to learn, how to make milk vanish. I looked through the catalog feverishly until I came to item number 463, and you're not going to believe this. Item number 463 in the Owen Magic Supreme catalog, you guys, is the magic milk pitcher. The magic milk pitcher, which means that the magician didn't have some special power. There wasn't some secret incantation he had learned. He wasn't gifted this sorcery when he, pulled a sword out of a fiery lake. He bought a magic trick pitcher, and if I had the trick pitcher, I could be the magician, and I could amaze people the same way he did with the trick that was passed down from warlock to shaman to birthday party clown. And I decided I was going to get this pitcher. Now, the only problem is the magic milk pitcher from Owen Magic Supreme to this day costs $75. And at 7 years old, $75 might as well have been $1 million. There was no way I was going to afford it. So instead, I took the Cinderella approach, making things with stuff I found around the house. Instead of getting a little shiny red box to do the trick with, I would make one out of duct tape and an old Kleenex box, right? And I started doing shows for my family and friends. I did this for 3 years until the 10th birthday party of my friend Shannon Carter came up. And this is when I got booked to do my first paying gig. I was going to get paid $25 and all the pizza I could eat to do a 15-minute show. And for me, that was huge. I couldn't wait for the party. The day before the party, I needed some last-minute supplies. So I stopped by the little trick shop in our hometown, and I went in there to look for some supplies. And you're not going to believe this. On the dusty glass shelf behind the old man who worked there was item number 463 from the Owen Magic Supreme catalog. It was the magic milk pitcher. See, a gentleman who had performed long into his 90s had recently passed away and given the pitcher and all of his supplies to the shop to sell off for his family. They only wanted $15 for it, and I could afford that, and now I had the big closer for my show. So the next day, there we are in Shannon Carter's backyard. Everybody's ready. They're dressed to the hilt. The gazebo was where the stage was, so I was setting up props while everyone was playing on the bounce house or getting their face painted. And then it was time, one last time to practice before they came over. I took the pitcher of milk, and I tested it, and it worked perfectly. So now we invite everyone over for the show, and I start to do my show. I do the linking ring trick, which they loved. I do the sponge ball trick, which they loved. And the show was going a little too good because I started to get cocky. And I thought, this closer's going to be the best. I put up a chair and I invited Shannon Carter in her brand new birthday dress, blue satin. It's the first time she ever wore it. She came up and I had her sit right next to me as I was going to perform this trick. So I took the newspaper and I folded it into a cone just like I saw the magician do at my party. And then I took the picture of Mel and I held it up just like I saw the magician do at my party. And I held the cone and I held the picture and then I held them both over Shannon's head. And this is when I began to pour. And ladies and gentlemen, when I began to pour is the same moment that I realized once you do the trick once, you have to reset the trick. Without giving it away, the trick is designed in a way that you can pour it once and magic happens, and the next time you pour it, you're just pouring a glass of milk so you can give it to a friend and show them that you really did the trick. So at this moment, I proceed to dump a half gallon of milk all over Shannon Carter in her blue birthday dress. And guys, this is when the party went bananas. People lost their mind. Kids are screaming. Parents are laughing. Kids over here are losing their mind. My best friend Cody Wills is in the front row. He had just downed a Capri Sun and did the biggest spit take over the crowd anyone's ever seen. And then it gets quiet. And everyone looks at Shannon. And Shannon looks at me. And she looks at her dress. And she's covered in milk on her birthday party in front of everybody. And she paused for 1 second. And then she laughed. And everybody else laughed. And it was the accidental hit of the party. And I think back to that laugh that Shannon gave me. And it was one of the greatest gifts anyone's ever given me. Because in that moment, she showed me that you can take what you do seriously, but you don't have to take yourself seriously. And I've been doing magic shows ever since.
Wasn't that wonderful, boys and girls?
Did you ever watch Mr. Rogers when you were a kid?
Absolutely.
Do you remember like a standout episode or something you learned from Mr. Rogers?
Okay, you know it's funny, I actually go back to YouTube because YouTube actually has a lot of his episodes on there.
Do they really?
I don't remember this particular one. Okay, well, let me say this. The one I do remember as a kid, I don't know why, but was the episode where they went and visited the crayon factory.
Oh, that's rad.
Where they made crayons. And I've actually been to that. It's in Pennsylvania. I think it's in Allentown.
What was the most interesting part of that? I would think it would be putting on the paper.
No.
Like when they put the paper on?
No. It's like when they dip the crayons. It's like when it goes from that liquidy hot wax.
I have not thought about this in like 30 years. But in kindergarten, we used to take crayons, take the paper off them, set them on the sidewalk so they got hot. And then kids would like scoop up the wax and throw it at you.
What?
Tough on the streets of Foothill Christian Elementary School.
I was listening to an interview the other day. They were saying that crayon is not only one of the most recognizable smells, like the actual crayon, like brand, Crayola, but it actually lowers blood pressure in adults.
Oh, that's why the adult coloring, that's like another side effect of it, is the scent of the... Do they add the scent to the crayon? Why would Crayola be so different than other crayons?
I don't know. That's a good question. I'm not sure. Hey, seriously, if you've never been, it's in Allentown, Pennsylvania. Took our kids there a couple years ago, wasn't it, Dylan?
Yeah. Let's hear from Dylan. Dylan, what did you think about the Crayola factory?
It was really cool. I really thought I wouldn't like it because I thought crayons was for little kids, but it was actually really cool to see how they made the crayons and get to see all different types. And like at the end, there's this big gift shop where you can like pick out like every color of crayon they've ever made, like every color. It was really cool.
You can make your own color too, right?
Yeah.
You can make your own color of crayon?
So you can make like the About to Break podcast crayon.
It'd just be like a light gray. The white crayon is the worst crayon ever.
Why?
You can't see it
Yeah.
unless you have a really dark sheet of paper, and even then it kind of doesn't work. Did you ever do that thing where you would color and then you would color over it, and then you would scratch the top layer of the color.
Man, who didn't do that?
I think if you haven't done that as an adult, coloring really is one of those things. I feel like there's only two things I've realized as an adult that don't have a law of diminishing returns, and I think it's coloring and swinging on a swing set.
Yeah, where you actually try to go over the swing set, right?
When you swing on a swing set, man, it just feels like, I don't know, there's a rush that comes that's the same rush you had when you were 5 years old. It feels the same.
Yeah, I broke a swing one time.
Did you really?
Yeah, I was actually as an adult, and that's even better for your self-esteem. I was only like, gosh, man, I was like 18 or 19.
So were you with friends trying to impress them? Like, look what I can
Actually,
do?
I was babysitting a kid, some friends of mine. Had a little boy, his name was Caleb. And he was like 3 years old at the time, and we were out at this neighborhood park. And we're out there swinging, and he's swinging, and then I'm swinging next to him. And then all of a sudden I'm swinging, man, and just one of the chains just snaps. And I'm like, what in the world? Like, I mean, those are the big chains, man, and I'm not that big of a guy, especially back then.
Were you like at the point of the swing, pendulum, where you're like close to the ground, or were you way up high and fell?
I want to say I was kind of like coming back down, going up, and then like as I'm going up, like I guess the strain on the chain was too much for it to do it again.
Welcome to Poem Time with Keith Coast.
Yeah, the sucker just snapped, man, and I went flying.
For those of you following our drive right now, we are just we're on the 210 freeway in Pasadena. If we get off, we can get a really good breakfast burrito. Yeah. All right, we're going to pause the podcast because we're in Pasadena, so we're going to go to Lucky Boy and get a breakfast burrito. We'll be back. This week's iTunes review of the week comes from Lucy Girl 2297. Lucy Girl writes, "Real talk about this cutthroat industry and the highs and lows that we artists go through. It's the elephant in the room that we don't like to talk about for fear of being alone in the struggle. I recommend this podcast to anyone in entertainment or anyone considering being a part of the industry." Thank you, Lucy Girl, for writing that review, and thank you to everyone who's left those 5-star reviews on iTunes. It's a simple way to spread the word and help others hear about the program. Now, back to the About to Break podcast. So we're back on the freeway, and somehow the apocalypse looks like it's about to happen.
Looks like San Andreas with the rock right now.
The weather has turned terrible. It literally looks like we're driving into the eye of a storm.
We're on a quest for a big giant brain.
And my head I'd be scratching while my thoughts were busy hatching if I only had a brain.
Dude, and he went to see a wizard. We're going to see Paul Gross, who's going to give us a brain.
We're off to see the wizard.
The wonderful Wizard of Fresno. So after story time at the show, then Keith Coast came up. And ladies and gentlemen, I just want to tell you to take a moment right now and appreciate your friends. Because when Keith was performing, I don't know, I was taken back by how cool my friends were. In fact, I think I said a little something about it after your performance.
You know, I just got to say, variety entertainers, it's a trade-off because the reason we can do this is for years we had no friends. But now we have the coolest friends.
Keith was hilarious and brilliant, and it was really fun. Keith did some tricks. You opened up with a bullwhip.
Yeah, that's what I do, Taylor. Now, a lot of people do ask me what I do for a living, exactly, which I get asked that all the time by my parents, the IRS, the TSA.
The funny thing was we had to go down to the venue a couple days earlier because Keith wasn't sure which size bullwhip to use, and he has several different options. The first main episode of this podcast was Micah Hansen. Micah was there. Micah came up to help you with the bullwhip, and he looked a little nervous.
You know, it's funny. I told you, like, after, like, it was actually the day after, I realized that Micah is an incredible artist, and I felt horrible for putting those lovely fingers in that kind of danger.
Keith does a. I won't give away the routine for those of you going to go see Keith live, but at one point he places something in the person's hand and is going to bullwhip it out of their hands, and afterward Keith realizes Maybe he shouldn't do that to a brilliant illustrator. In fact, we got a show to plug coming up on June 4th. And Micah did all the artwork for the poster. It's just freaking amazing.
It's fantastic. I'm really sad I'm going to miss the show.
Oh, it's going to be a great show. We are going to be at Nerd Melt at actually the Nerdist showroom at Meltdown Comics with Eddie Firth and myself hosting a new show we got called Jokers and Aces. And this show's going to be wild, man. I'm bringing 3 magicians, and he's bringing 3 comedians. We got, who do we have on the show? We got
Justin Willman.
Justin Willman's going to headline the show for us. Incredible performer.
Man, I wanted to see him live.
Oh my gosh, it's going to be good. We got Justin Willman. We got Matt Marcy that you've heard on the podcast here. We got Dave Kovac. Incredible. Like, just so friggin' funny and just a gentleman performer. Just brilliant. And we got some great comedians. We got Byron Bowers, Matt McCarthy, Scout Durwood. It's going to be great, man. That's going to be Sunday, June 4th. Tickets are available right now. You can get those on the link that I'm going to put on the show notes here. So if you'd like to go see that show, go check it out. But then, yeah, so Keith comes up and he does that. And then, Keith, you shoved your body into a giant balloon.
I wasn't planning on doing this. It's not because I didn't want to, but I just wasn't for sure.
Well, we talked on the podcast last week. People know your love-hate relationship with the balloon.
Yeah, it's there, but it's real. But here's the deal. You had plugged the show where you said, I'm bringing in performers where they're going to perform what they're best known for. And so I had to do the balloon at that point.
It was really, really freaking great. And dude, I love it. So my mom, if you're listening, thanks for coming to the show. Thanks for supporting. It's always fun when you bring your parents to a show where your friends tell dirty jokes to them.
It wasn't me.
It wasn't Keith. But Keith did bring out a leaf blower, and my mom and her friends are sitting very close to the stage, and Keith brought out a leaf blower and blew the leaf blower in my mother's face. And I've never seen the woman's hair look so incredible. I mean, she's got great hair, but it just did something. It just flew up. I could see a fancy, like, hipstery LA beauty salon start using leaf blowers.
Thinking, have you seen people have been tagging me on Facebook lately with that dude that is like cutting guys' hair with an axe? Have you seen this?
Yes, he's gonna murder someone.
No, he's not gonna murder someone. Someone's just missing an ear, you know?
Dude, every time I see that, I'm like,
my ears lowered. That's really gonna happen.
Every time I see clips like that with guys like you, or there's a guy who uses like a samurai sword.
Yeah, swords and stuff like that.
And it's actually like crazy sharp to cut hair like that.
No, man, it's ridiculous.
I don't know. I've never been getting a haircut and I wish this was more exciting.
What if we open up a place called Carney Cuts, where we use juggling knives and fire breathing?
Yes.
That'll kind of take away the split ends.
Yeah. It could be Carney Cuts Hair and Deli, because it works both ways, the cuts. Copyright Keith Coast, Taylor Hughes, 2017.
Is this a hair in my bologna?
Is this bologna in my hair?
I asked for ham and cheese, not hair and cheese.
Keith just totally killed it, man. You did so good. It was friggin' awesome. This was a great show, man.
My favorite moment that whole show was actually your sister was there too.
My sister was there. It was pretty much a family reunion.
Yeah, but I will say this: I don't want you guys being like it wasn't just your family that showed up. There was a lot of other people there.
Yeah, it was fun.
Just you have an incredibly supportive family that enjoys quality entertainment at an affordable price.
That's true.
But your sister was sitting there in the front row, and her sister, they were having a great time, but they were talking, and I shushed them.
You did. My sister got shushed a couple times. First of all, you shushed her, and then Chipper got up, and my sister was putting everything on Snapchat. And that's like a big no-no in comedy, because it's like, you know, guys are working out stuff, they're trying new things, and then like, you know, you put stuff online like that, and then people don't come to the show the next day.
Yeah. Gosh, it was hilarious.
Chipper was so good. He was like, "Oh, actually, if you put the phone down and look with your eyes, it's like you're watching it live.
You're watching it really happen in front of your face."
No, I love you, sis.
Yeah, you know, it's funny. Like, gosh, what was it? Like, I think it was 2009 or I don't know. All the years run together. But I was in Singapore, let's say maybe 7 years ago. And everybody in Singapore at the time, this was back, I think this was the last big year for BlackBerry.
Okay.
It was the alternative to the iPhone.
Yes, I remember. It was a big deal because the president was using a BlackBerry.
Yeah. So, but everybody in Singapore had a BlackBerry, and Apple iPhone had just come out. So they also had an iPhone. Everybody in Singapore had 2 phones.
Wow.
But I'll never forget, I'm doing a show this was like a small show just to kind of plug for, a small group of kids or something like that. And they're all, I looked up and there was like all these little kids with phones just like recording the whole thing.
Yeah, so you're there and you're doing the show and they're all watching it on their iPhone?
Yeah, they're all recording you. And I'm like, what the heck, dude?
There's a chance to see a live performance. You got to see it live. I've never understood, too, when people are videotaping at a live show. What are they going to do with that videotape?
Look, just go on YouTube, type in Keith Coast. You're going to see a lot of crappy content from phones. There's this one guy, gosh, he's probably had that thing up for almost 15 years. It's a horrible, horrible video clip of me doing a straitjacket routine. You can't hear the music. The lighting is horrible.
I've seen so many times performers are recording. Like, I've been to tapings. And I think, we're using real cameras here. Like, what do you think you're going to get an angle that's just like, oh, I just got a perspective on this. It's going to be killer.
Yeah, so if you're listening to the podcast, do yourself a favor and put down the phone, turn it off.
Well, not right now. They're listening to the podcast.
Well, I mean, when you go to a show.
Oh, yes.
And I even had an oopsie moment. I was at the castle, the Magic Castle, that is.
Ooh, we've talked about this before.
Did we?
No, just the castle.
Yeah, it's the castle. And they always, like, you're not allowed to take pictures inside the castle or whatever. But I had my phone on. I thought I had it turned off. And, like, as the dude just gave the announcement to make sure that your phone's on silent, my phone goes off. It was an alarm or something.
It's a terrible feeling, isn't it?
And I'm like, and it's almost like I got that look. From the guy that makes you, like, want to crawl under your chair and
right,
just cry.
Well, that's one of the reasons why I didn't. With the live show, we wanted to have a live show experience, and why I'm not posting the whole show here on the podcast. First of all, so much of it is visual, so much of it is visual, and also there's something about experiencing it in person and live, and so we want to talk about the show, but we also want people to come the next time we do it and see it live.
I think you and I have talked about this. We had talked about this idea. I think I would love to put together a show where, literally, well, I thought it would be fun to do a show that included, like, no electronics or anything like that, any kind of devices, even from my show.
Yeah.
So, like, no music, I can
really go after the Amish market.
Yeah, totally. But wouldn't it be sweet to have a live band or somebody playing live music? My dream is to have sheet music that I turn over to an okay junior high band.
Yeah.
And just let them suffer their way through it. And then
I love that. I love that, man. The analog tour.
The analog tour.
Copyright 2017 Keith Coast.
And sometimes I use a drill. I'd use a hand drill, like no battery operation.
My favorite will be when you try to blow up that 6-foot balloon.
Well, that's not going to be in there, obviously. Unless I have an idea. Was it Mozart that they used to have those big pipe organs that could be powered by
like the bellows?
The bellows?
Yeah.
Just get a big bellow. A big one.
Oh, super huge.
Have the audience.
We're already traveling with the big brain.
Yes. That's not electronic. Well, the
lasers are.
We'll use real swords.
Oh, there you go.
Actually, I was thinking, I think we had this idea where we could make giant pencils and then sharpen them, and then shove them through the brain.
There's been a lot of times where I've been places where I wanted to shove a pencil in my brain.
Yes. But here's the deal. I think a show, you should enjoy it. And I can tell you right now, in my experience of traveling around the world, you see a beautiful sunset. You cannot capture that sunset on your phone, so stop trying. I don't care how good your phone is. You're going to get a small, mediocre version of that sunset. So quit trying. It's the same thing when you watch a show and you're trying to record it or whatever. It doesn't translate.
I think we've all done that, where we've been somewhere and had this incredible experience, and maybe we caught some video of it. I do that with shows all the time. I'll be like, man, the show was electric. Like, it was just, there's something special about it. And then they'll send me a video of it, and I'll be like, okay, it's okay, but it just doesn't translate. There's something about being there together.
If you take a video at a concert of a very well-known person, number one, you're a jerk because you're just bragging to all of us that you're there, and we're not. And number two, you're also showing us that this video is not nearly as good as what you're experiencing in person.
Yeah, this gets into the whole thing about being present, like just being here right now. We've talked about that a lot, man.
Yeah, totally. I think that's one of the things that I love the most about this show. It wasn't a huge, big crowd. It was intimate, and it was fantastic. I mean, the way the space was, and we took a lot of, there was a lot of thought that went into the, like, hey, which corner or which way are we going to use? How are we going to set up the table?
We didn't need another big crowd to perform for. We wanted to create a special something.
And hey, there were some things because of that show, because I felt comfortable and there wasn't as much pressure. I came up with some new routine stuff.
Yeah.
So that I'm going to use and carry over into.
Yeah, I think everybody that night had something happen. Because
totally accidental.
Yeah. Oh, I had a major accident in the show that ended up becoming like, it fixed part of a routine that was like.
I've seen your routine before, and when it happened, I was like, oh my God, did that just happen? And then I thought, Taylor, that was brilliant. And then afterwards, I was like, hey, dude, it was a total accident. And I was like,
oh, yeah.
I knew it.
It was one of those things that, I dropped a prop and something broke, but it created this moment that could be replicated, that now it took a trick that was, it took a routine that I was already pretty excited about, and now it just kind of pushed it over to the edge. So, yeah, there's something about just embracing the moment, and being there and being present. And that was the best part about this show, this live show, was just, I don't know, there was just something. You're in a 120-year-old building with a small group of people and 4 performers who, are used to performing in large theaters. And it was just special. It was really rad. So thank you to everyone who came out to the live show. Thank you to everyone who has been supporting the podcast. It really means a ton. And we want to do more live experiences like this. I want to continue to have chances for us just to meet up and to talk with a community of artists. In fact, I do want to talk about this, and maybe we end here. We went a couple days after this back to Pomona to the art walk. And Keith, your face was amazing when we showed up to the art walk. I think, well, let's see if you remember what you said. I remember what you said.
Are those tacos?
You did say, are those tacos, but your first words were, I belong here, or something.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I belong here. Mainly because there's tacos. Yeah, I mean, it's an incredible vibe. It's truly an artist community.
Oh, yeah.
Felt like we were in that really kind of mushy emotional scene in all the Fast and Furious movies where it's all about family.
That's fantastic.
And Dom's about to say the prayer, which is not really a prayer. But yeah, it was awesome. It was really cool.
If you've never been to the Pomona Arts Walk, I think they do it the second Saturday of every month. And it's absolutely incredible, man. It's got the setup feel of a street fair, but it feels nothing like a street fair. Imagine if every booth you went to was a local artist who was unique and creative. And then as you're walking down the street, people have artist lofts that they live, it's live workspace, and so they just open up their homes and their galleries, and you come in and people got food and they're hanging out, and it's just it really is a unique experience. And in fact, we are going to be partnering August 13th. We're going to be recording live at the Art Walk. So June, July, we're going to be traveling a bunch. We'll still be posting shows every week, but on August 13th, we're going to do a live show, an actual live podcast recording from the Pomona Arts Walk, and we're going to be interviewing artists. So make sure that you make plans to come out for that on August 13th. It's going to be awesome. And before then,
Bring cash.
why do they need to bring cash? Not for the podcast. That's free.
Well, I mean, you know what, Taylor? They don't want to bring cash for the podcast, but they can become sponsors on Patreon for the podcast.
Oh wow, that was an unsolicited.
It was unsolicited. I feel like, honestly, I've been an executive producer of this podcast since the beginning. Matter of fact, the mic that you're holding in my face actually used to be my mic because I used to have a podcast.
It did. Keith had a podcast, and then didn't have a podcast, and I said, "Hey, what are you doing with that sweet mic?"
So there you go. So,
But why do they need to bring cash to the Art Walk?
bring cash because they have amazing food. There's a guy selling. Did you see the pork belly tacos that that dude was doing? We didn't eat because we had actually had a big dinner, and I was like, man,
Yeah, so bring cash and an appetite.
great food, great drinks.
Just incredible people, man. Like, just so many awesome folks that you get to meet, and local artists, and they've got live music. We'll be interviewing artists about the work that they do, and just getting to meet some folks. So we hope to see you guys there. That's going to be August 13th. That's a couple months away. But next month on June 4th, Sunday, June 4th, be sure to check out Jokers and Aces at Meltdown Comics in the Nerdist showroom there. Again, hosted by myself, Mr. Eddie Firth. We're going to have Justin Willman, Byron Bowers, Scout Durwood. We got Matt McCarthy. Matt Marcy's going to be on the show, and David Kovac. So we hope to see you all there on June 4th. Thanks so much for tuning in this week. And if you want to become a producer of the show, you can go to abouttobreakpodcast.com. Click on the Become a Producer button. We got some great episodes of the show coming up in the next couple weeks. Got some more musicians. We have my buddy Greg Bennett, who's not only a keynote speaker, but has been a hardcore singer for years and spoken word artist. Sung for Between Earth and Sky and the band Trial, and has toured all over Europe and North America. So you're going to love that. We also have Tobin from the band Flatfoot 56 going to be coming up on the podcast and talking about what it's like to be punk rock, Celtic punk singer by night, substitute teacher by day. This is the About to Break podcast, folks. We do what it takes to pay the bills and do the thing we love. Thanks so much for tuning in, guys. We're going to keep trucking along here on the road trip, but we were glad to have you guys as part of it. We'll see you soon.